Human brain. Is reflex action the only function of the spinal cord? Obviously not. Since we know that we are thinking beings, spinal cord is made up of nerves which supply information to think about. Thinking involves more complex mechanisms and neural connections. They are concentrated in the brain, which is the main coordinating center of the body. The brain and the spinal cord constitute the central nervous system. They receive information from all parts of the body and integrate it. We also think about our actions. Writing, talking, moving a chair, clapping at the end of a program are examples of voluntary actions which are based on deciding what to do next. So, the brain also has to send messages to muscles. This is the second way in which the nervous system communicates with the muscles. The communication between the central nervous system and the other parts of the body is facilitated by peripheral nervous system consisting of cranial nerves arising from the brain and spinal cord nerves arising from the spinal cord. The brain thus allows us to think and take actions based on that thinking. As you will expect, this is accomplished through a complex design with different parts of the brain responsible for integrating different inputs and outputs. The brain has three such major parts or regions, namely the forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. The forebrain is the main thinking part of the brain. It has regions which receive sensory impulses from various receptors. Separate areas of the forebrain are specialized for hearing, smell, sight and so on. There are separate areas of association where this sensory information is interpreted by putting it together with information from other receptors as well as with information that is already stored in the brain. Based on all this, a decision is made about how to respond and the information is passed on to the motor areas which control the movement of voluntary muscles, for example, our leg muscles. However, certain sensations are distinct from seeing or hearing. For example, how do we know that we have eaten enough? The sensation of feeling full is because of a center associated with hunger, which is in a separate part of the forebrain. Study the label diagram of the human brain. We have seen that the different parts have specific functions. Can we find out the function of each part? Let us look at the other use of the word reflex that we have talked about in the introduction. Our mouth waters when we see food we like without our meaning to. Our hearts beat without our thinking about it. In fact, we cannot control these actions easily by thinking about them even if we wanted to. Do we have to think about or remember to breathe or to digest food? So, in between the reflex actions like change in the size of the pupil and the thought about actions such as moving a chair, there is another set of muscle movement over which we do not have any thinking control. Many of these involuntary actions are controlled by the midbrain and hindbrain. All these voluntary actions, including blood pressure, salivation and vomiting, are controlled by the medulla in the hindbrain. Think about activities like walking in a straight line, riding a bicycle, picking up a pencil. These are possible due to a part of hindbrain called the cerebellum. It is responsible for precision of voluntary actions and maintaining the posture and balance of the body. Imagine what would happen if each of these events failed to take place if we were not thinking about it. How are these tissues protected? A delicate organ like brain, which is so important for a variety of activities, needs to be carefully protected. For this, the body is designed so that the brain sits inside a bony box. Inside the box, the brain is contained in a fluid-filled balloon which provides further shock absorption. If you run your hand down the middle of your back, you will feel hard and bumpy structure. This is the vertebral column or the backbone which protects the spinal cord. How does the nervous tissue cause action? So far, we have been talking about nervous tissue and how it collects information, sends it around the body, processes information, makes decisions based on information, and conveys decision to the muscle for action. In other words, when the action or movement is to be performed, muscle tissue will do the final job. How do animals muscles move? When a nerve muscle reaches the when a nerve impulse reaches the muscle fiber must move. How does a muscle cell move? The simplest notion of movement at the cellular level is that muscle cells will move by changing their shape so that they shorten. So the next question is, how do muscles change their shape? The answer must lie in the chemistry of cellular components. Muscle cells have a special protein that change both their shape and their arrangement in the cell in response to the nervous electrical impulses. When this happens, new arrangements of these proteins give the muscle cells a shorter form. Remember when we talked about muscle tissue in class 9th? There were different kinds of muscles such as voluntary muscles and involuntary muscles. Based on what we have discussed so far, what do you think the difference between these would be? Coordination in plants. Animals have nervous system for controlling and coordinating the activities of the body, but plants have neither a nervous system nor muscles. So how do they respond to stimuli? When we touch the leaves of a chuimui, the sensitive or touch me not plant of the mimosa family, they begin to fold and droop. When a seed germinates, the root goes down and the stem comes up into the air. What happens? Firstly, the leaves of the sensitive plant move very quickly in response to touch. There is no growth involved in this movement. On the other hand, the directional movement of seedling is caused by growth. If it is prevented from growing, it will not show any movement. So, plants show two different types of movement, one dependent on growth and the other independent of growth. Immediate response to stimulus. Let us think about the first kind of movement, such as that of the sensitive plant. Since no growth is involved, the plant must actually move its leaves in response to touch. But there is no nervous tissue or any muscle tissue. How does the plant detect the touch and how do the leaves move in response? If we think about where exactly the plant is touched and what part of the plant actually moves, it is apparent that movement happens at a point different from the point of touch. So, information that a touch has occurred must be communicated. The plants use electrical chemical means to convey this information from cell to cell, but unlike in animals, there is no specialized tissue in plants for conduction of information. Finally, again as in animals, some cells must change shape in order for movement to happen. Instead of specialized proteins found in animal muscle cells, plant cells change by changing the amount of water in them, resulting in swelling or shrinking or therefore in changing shapes. Movement due to growth. Some plants like pea plant climb up other plants or fences by means of tendrils. These tendrils are sensitive to touch. When they come in contact with any support, the part of tendril in contact with the object does not grow as rapidly as the part of the tendril away from the object. This causes the tendril to circle around the object and thus cling to it. More commonly, plants respond to stimuli slowly by growing in a particular direction. Because this growth is directional, it appears as if the plant is moving. Let us understand this type of movement with the help of an example. Activity: fill a conical flask with water. Cover the neck of the flask with a wire mesh. Keep 2 or 3 freshly germinated bean seeds on the wire mesh. Take a cardboard box which is open from one side. Keep the flask in the box in such a manner that the open side of the box faces light coming from the window. After 2 or 3 days, you will notice the shoot bend towards light and roots away from the light. Now turn the flask so that the shoots are away from the light and roots towards light. Leave it undisturbed in this condition for a few days. Have the old parts of the shoot and root change direction? Are there differences in the direction of the new growth? What can we conclude from this activity? Environmental triggers such as light or gravity will change the direction of that plant parts grow in. These directional or tropic movements can be either towards the stimulus or away from it. So, in two different kinds of phototropic movement, shoots respond by bending towards the light while roots respond by bending away from it. How does this help the plants? Plants show tropism in response to other stimuli as well. The roots of a plant always grow downwards while the shoots usually grow upwards and away from the earth. This upward and downward growth of roots and shoots respectively in response to the pull of earth or gravity is obviously geotropism. If hydro means water and chemo refers to chemicals, what would hydrotropism and chemotropism mean? Can we think of example of these kinds of directional growth movements? One example of chemotropism is the growth of pollen tubes towards ovules, about which we will learn more when we examine the reproductive processes of living organisms. Let us now once again think about how information is communicated in the bodies of a multicellular organisms. The movement of the sensitive plant in response to the touch is very quick. The movement of sunflower in response to day or night, on the other hand, is quite slow. Growth related movements of plants will be even slower. Even in animal bodies, there are carefully controlled directions to growth. Our arms and fingers grow in certain directions, not haphazardly. So, controlled movements can be either slow or fast. If fast responses to stimuli are to be made, information transfer must happen very quickly. For this, the medium of transmission must be able to move rapidly. Electrical impulses are an excellent means for this, but there are limitations to the use of electrical impulses. Firstly, they will reach only those cells that are connected by nervous tissue, not each and every cell in the animal body. Secondly, once an electric impulse is generated in a cell and transmitted, the cell will take some time to reset its mechanism before it can generate and transmit a new impulse. In other words, cells cannot continually create and transmit electrical impulses. It is thus no wonder that most multicellular organisms use another means of communication between cells, namely chemical communication. If instead of generating an electrical impulse, stimulated cells release a chemical compound, this compound would diffuse all around the original cell. If other cells around have the means to detect this compound using special molecules on their surfaces, then they would be able to recognize information and even transmit it. This will be slower, of course, but it can potentially reach all cells of the body regardless of the nervous connections, and it can be done steadily and persistently. These compounds or hormones used by multicellular organisms for control and coordination show a great deal of diversity, as we would expect. Different plant hormones help to coordinate growth, development, and responses to the environment. They are synthesized at places away from where they act and simply diffuse to the area of action. Let us take an example that we have worked with earlier, activity 7.2. When growing plants detect light, a hormone called auxin synthesized at the shoot tip helps the cells to grow longer. When light is coming from one side of the plant, auxin diffuses towards the shady side of the shoot. This concentration of auxin stimulates the cells to grow longer on the side of the shoot which is away from light. Thus, the plant appears to bend towards light. Another example of plant hormones are gibberellins, which, like auxins, help in growth of the stem. Cytokinins promote cell division, and it is natural then that they are present in greater concentration in areas of rapid cell division, such as in fruits and seeds. These are examples of plant hormones that help in promoting growth. But plants also need signals to stop growing. Abscisic acid is one example of a hormone which inhibits growth. Its effects include wilting of leaves. Hormones in animals. How are such chemical or hormonal means of information transmission used in animals? What do some animals, for instance squirrels, experience when they are in a scary situation? Their bodies have to prepare for either fighting or running away. Both are very complicated activities that will use a great deal of energy in controlled ways. Many different tissue types will be used and their activities integrated together in these actions. However, the two alternate activities, fighting or running, are also quite different. So, here is a situation in which some common preparations can be usefully made in the body. These preparations should ideally make it easier to do either activity in the near future. How would this be achieved? If the body design in squirrel relied on electrical impulses via nerve cells, the range of tissues instructed to prepare for the coming activity would be limited. On the other hand, if a chemical signal were to be sent as well, it would reach all the cells of the body and provide wide-ranging changes needed. This is done in many animals, including human beings, using a hormone called adrenaline that is secreted from the adrenal glands. Look at figure 7.7 to locate these glands. Adrenaline is secreted directly into the blood and carried to different parts of the body. The target organs or the specific tissues on which it acts include the heart. As a result, the heart beats faster, resulting in supply of more oxygen to our muscles. The blood to the digestive system and skin is reduced due to contraction of muscles around small arteries in these organs. This diverts the blood to our skeletal muscles. The breathing rate also increases because of the contractions of the diaphragm and the rib muscles. All these responses together enable the animal body to be ready to deal with the situation. Such animal hormones are the part of endocrine system which constitutes a second way of control and coordination in our body. Look at figure 7.7. Identify the endocrine glands mentioned in the figure. Some of these glands have been listed in table 7.1 and discussed in text. Consult books in library and discuss with your teachers to find out about other glands. Remember that plants have hormones that control their directional growth. What functions do animal hormones perform? On the face of it, we cannot imagine their role in directional growth. We have never seen an animal growing more in one direction or the other depending on light or gravity. But if we think about it a bit more, it will become evident. Even in animal bodies, growth will happen in carefully controlled places. Plants will grow leaves in many places on the body, for example, but we do not grow fingers on our faces. The design of the body is carefully maintained even during the growth of children. Figure 7.7. Endocrine glands in human beings, male and female. Let us examine some examples to understand how hormones help in coordinated growth. We have all seen salt packets which say iodized salt or enriched with iodine. Why is it important for us to have iodized salt in our diet? Iodine is necessary for the thyroid gland to make thyroxine hormone. Thyroxine regulates carbohydrate, protein and fat metabolism in the body so as to provide the best balance for growth. Iodine is essential for the synthesis of thyroxine. In case iodine is deficient in our diet, there is possibility that we might suffer from goiter. One of the symptoms in this disease is a swollen neck. Can you correlate this with the position of the thyroid gland in figure 7.7? Sometimes we come across people who are either very short, dwarfs, or extremely tall, giants. Have you ever wondered how this happens? Growth hormone is one of the hormones secreted by the pituitary. As its name indicates, growth hormone regulates growth and development of the body. If there is deficiency of this hormone in childhood, it leads to dwarfism. You must have noticed many dramatic changes in your appearance as well as that of your friends as you approach 10 to 12 years of age. These changes associated with puberty are because of the secretion of testosterone in males and estrogen in females. Do you know anyone in your family or friends who has been advised by the doctor to take less sugar in their diet because they are suffering from diabetes? As a treatment, they might be taking injections of insulin. This is a hormone which is produced by pancreas and helps in regulating blood sugar levels. If it is not secreted in proper amounts, the sugar level in the body rises, causing many harmful effects. If it is so important that hormones should be secreted in precise quantity, we need a mechanism through which this is done. The timing and amount of hormone released are regulated by feedback mechanism. For example, if the sugar levels in blood rise, they are detected by the cells of pancreas which respond by producing more insulin. As the blood sugar falls, insulin secretion is reduced. Activity 7.4. Hormones are secreted by endocrine glands and have specific functions. Complete table 7.1 based on the hormone and the endocrine functions or the functions provided. Some important hormones and their functions are given below. Growth hormone secreted by pituitary gland functions is stimulate growth in all organs. Insulin regulates blood sugar level. Thyroid gland regulates metabolism for body growth. Testosterone, testes or ovaries, development of female sex organs and regulates menstrual cycle, etc. Adrenaline, adrenal gland, then releasing hormones stimulates pituitary gland to release hormones. Then there is a summary what you have learnt. Control and coordination are the functions of the nervous system and hormones in our body. The responses of the nervous system can be classified as reflex action, voluntary action or involuntary action. The nervous system uses electrical impulses to transmit messages. The nervous system gets information from our sense organs and acts through our muscles. Chemical coordination is seen in both plants and animals. Hormones produced in one part of organism move to another part to achieve the desired effect. A feedback mechanism regulates the action of the hormones. Then there is a small box. It says, do you know, hypothalamus plays an important role in the release of many hormones. For example, when the level of growth hormone is low, the hypothalamus releases growth hormone realizing factor, which stimulates the pituitary gland to release growth hormone. With this chapter ends. If you liked it, please subscribe and share. Gee.